This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the wonderful world of the Sunday stream. This is a follow-up to Sunday's original broadcast because we all got waylaid by Dr. Sam. You can go back to part 1 if you want to learn the magic of Dr. Sam. But in summary, we have a sort of a webinar lecture series discussion from the Idaho State University in regards to how to create inclusive classrooms. At least that's how it was branded. And we were supposed to have 3 different speakers, but one speaker decided to make it the her show for the better part of the first half of the entire broadcast. Some of the information in there was interesting. Some of it was reasonable, but I got very tired of listening to this one person just go on and on and on. So I tried to get past it, but by the time I got past it, there wasn't a whole lot of time left in the original show to keep going with the other speakers. And so I'm going to start about halfway through the broadcast and pick up effectively where we left off. A little bit of overlap. I backed up a minute or two just to make sure we remind ourselves where we're at. But we're now listening to an educator, a counselor, who I guess trains other counselors about how to make an inclusive classroom. And she had some very, at least to me, baffling ideas about how to make that happen, including getting people to talk about their personal religious beliefs or their personal political beliefs in the classroom because reasons. Also not wanting to monolith people at the same time she was generalizing about people and herself on the basis of race. It was all very, very interesting. But that's all the summary of last time. Before I get into the continuation, who's joining me for this special Tuesday broadcast? Noah Asensio, good afternoon. Dr. Functional, good afternoon. Mike R., good afternoon. Jen T. Maxey, good afternoon. Brittany Holland, good afternoon. Shadow Claw, good afternoon. The Original Shroom, good afternoon. Robert Pincus, good afternoon. Mike Savage, Blarg, afternoon. And Jack Frost, good afternoon. Rib Rascal, good afternoon. Blakester, good afternoon. Good afternoon, good afternoon. I'm not used to saying good afternoon, so it's kind of rolling off of the tongue a little awkwardly. But anyway, that's all the preamble. I want to get right into this because eventually I'd like to have some lunch, but I felt it was necessary to wrap up this particular adventure. So let's continue on with Idaho State University in teaching us strategies for creating inclusive classrooms. I believe the speaker's name is Naisha, I think, or Nisha. Anyway, she's a counselor and or a teacher of counselors. And so let's get going.
Being upfront with what I think, it makes it safe for students to be able to share those things. So I also think about these ideas, equity versus equality, right? So I'm not trying to create an environment in my classes where every student gets the same thing because that doesn't work, right? So I'm trying to create an environment where every student gets what they need. And then
okay. I mean, I agree with the idea of, we're not trying to, hopefully, she's not creating a classroom of equal outcome, right? Because there's equality of opportunity and there's equality of outcome. To get equality of outcome, you have to engineer expectations and usually aim for a very low common denominator. That's not what you want if you want excellence in education and the products thereof in the students that you're training. But they get everything that they need. I can kind of imagine, I suppose, what that means. I would love if she gave us an example. Like, here's a student that came in with blah, and they needed this. But then another student came into that same class that had this issue, and they needed this. So I'm sure such things exist. I would love to hear what you do and how you handle that problem on the ground.
An example of that is I go back to this cultural course and we have students who, have very conservative religious beliefs and students who are completely on the opposite spectrum of that. and might feel marginalized or oppressed in their beliefs in that classroom, but they are not marginalized or oppressed in big society. So creating a space where students on both ends of the spectrum can talk about those things in some kind of middle ground. That's been important.
Okay, wait. And if I addressed this in the previous stream, because I can't remember everything I said at the end of the last stream, I'll just say it again. Why does this information need to be relayed in a counseling class? If I'm still understanding what it is that she teaches, because she said she trains counselors, why does anybody have to declare their personal religious beliefs, conservative or otherwise, in the classroom? Okay, why? And B, even if this was some kind of religious classroom, what kind of middle ground is necessary to come to for the sake of counseling? I mean, even if for some reason it was appropriate to bring those things up, I don't understand. I don't understand what this is. I mean, as far as I know, Idaho State University is not a religious school, correct? It's not like a Christian college or something, unless I'm completely off base. If it is, and I've just, missed a big factor because I don't live in Idaho, obviously, then by all means, somebody correct me. But her example there of how to create an equitable space by trying to find middle ground with conservative religious people and either not religious people or liberally religious people in a counseling classroom, why?
So I talked a lot about, I want to model this way of being from our very first class. So I'm honest with students about how things make me feel, about when I'm uncomfortable, and I encourage them to do the same.
Why are your feelings important? Why? My feelings? I'm there to be instructed. Are you teaching counselors or are you counseling people?
Things that I do well. Students want to know when I was a counselor, they want to know times when I messed up, times when I got it wrong, because that makes them feel like they have permission to also make mistakes and get things wrong.
Did they not have this permission growing up prior to coming to college? I mean, if you assume these students burst into existence at the moment they entered your classroom, I suppose, but otherwise, are you just coddling children who have not lived any particular amount of life to this point to know that, yes, you are going to make mistakes? I suppose in this current generation of Gen Zers and so on, maybe that's not too far off base. I don't know.
So from the very first class, I'm working on ways to model this way of being that we are expecting from our counselors in training. Also, like Dr. Sam mentioned, I want to diversify the curriculum. So I want to include diverse voices from the counseling field in our syllabus. And I also want to include diverse mediums. So I have videos, I have podcasts, I have movies, I have guest speakers, right? So all of these different perspectives are being invited into our classroom so students can find different things that they can connect with.
Okay, well, diverse mediums, yes, those are all very different things. What do you mean by diverse voices? Because when I hear that, especially after the pedigree of the last 6 or 7 years of listening to DEI work, I'm assuming you mean people of a particular appearance. Is that what you mean?
It's really hard. I found that it's hard for students to do all the reading, but if I put a podcast up, everyone will listen. That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I also try to make sure that I'm very intentional about taking assessment of student needs. So as I mentioned, I started teaching here in a pandemic, and students are really overwhelmed, not just with the course material, but also just with the state of the world. So I asked students, what would be the best day for you to turn in this assignment?
Oh, yes.
It's no point in me having students turn in assignments on Fridays at 11:59 when I'm going to be asleep anyway, right?
I guess so. Yeah, I went off on a little rant about using a college experience to teach people, students especially, about deadlines and setting an expectation and having the responsibility to get something in on time, punctuality, etc. Yeah. Oh no, that's no big deal. With the pandemic, I totally understand. Yeah, punctuality. No, that doesn't matter now. That doesn't. You're overwhelmed. You're all overwhelmed. I understand.
So I want to have a day that works best for the students. So even things like that I've found have made the environment feel more accessible and welcoming, especially for adult learners who have responsibilities outside of what they're being asked to do in our graduate program.
Oh, so people who have responsibilities and know about getting something done when it needs to get done? Okay, sure.
Dr. Sam spoke to encouraging the voice of students from minoritized or marginalized backgrounds. And that's also something that I want to do, but I also want to do it in a way that it doesn't require extra emotional labor from students, right?
Okay.
I'm a Black person, but I cannot speak for all Black people. So I'm just giving you my experience with a certain thing. And I'm not calling on students to share their experience and put them in a position to further feel uncomfortable if that's what that will lead to. So that's also important.
Yeah, I think I said we're still in the territory of where I left off on the last stream. If you're not representative of a demographic, why bring up the demographic at all? Why even make it an issue? Save yourself a lot of time and stress.
And then finally, I just want to organically build in opportunities for students to have an opportunity to reflect on the criteria. I feel like with adult learners, it's really important when we are trying to install a new way of being or different things like that.
What?
That they have an opportunity to be challenged, but not to the point where that we lose them. So trying to find that middle ground where we are slowly incorporating this new material and into their way of being. So that's really.
What are you talking? No, the way of being? We don't want to overwhelm them. Well, then you have a structured curriculum and syllabus that you've hammered out over the course of your time being a teacher as to, that's called scheduling, right? You let someone know up front, these are the expectations you'll have in this classroom. We're going to read these books. The class runs from this date to this date. These will be the times that we'll have tests or anything else. I mean, admittedly, I did not have to go to school during the pandemic, but at the same time, I don't see how setting a schedule and holding your students to that schedule and making sure that it's a schedule that's manageable not only for the students, but also for you, the teacher, how has that gone by the wayside just because of the pandemic? Overwhelmed? If they get overwhelmed, then they bit off more than they can chew and they have to take it up later. Okay.
All I have. I feel like that was really quick, but
as compared to Dr. Sam, you were the pinnacle of German efficiency, and I appreciate that, even if I have endless questions about what you said or how it applies to anything.
I'm going to stop there. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the perfect amount of time. It gives us lots of time for discussion at the end.
Yeah, unlike with what Dr. Sam did. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Dr. Sam.
Our final speaker is Mona. Mona, would you like to start us off?
Aha.
Absolutely. My name is Mona Hearn, and I work with some amazing folks here at the College of Education, and I want to thank Dr. Appleby for inviting me to be a part of this panel. So today I'm going to speak about how to create and support equitable classrooms through the lens of anti-racism education.
Oh, joy! Joy! Happy, happy! Joy, joy! Oh boy, anti-racism. My favorite.
And specifically when it comes to the importance of anti-racism education in an elementary school setting.
Oh, we have reached the promised land, everybody. Anti-racism education in elementary school. Oh, excellent. So we have everything framed exactly as I would like it. We know exactly the age group we're aiming for, and we have the ideology we're attempting to instill. Hey, kids, did you know that you're all racists? Oh, joy. Are you as happy as I am? Somehow I doubt it. But Texas Attorney General Secret Agent, good afternoon. TC, good afternoon. Deco, good afternoon. Who else did I miss? A2P, good afternoon. Te Bishop, good afternoon. And if I missed you, if you, Cephtus Wolf, if I didn't already say good afternoon. If I missed you, if you're lurking, or if you're in the future, good afternoon. All right. I'm excited. Are you excited? I'm excited.
And the reason that I wanted to focus in this particular setting is because there's so many misconceptions about how young people view race and racism.
Oh, really? Young people, like elementary school kids. Okay. I wonder. This is me trying to do my Karnak impression. Somewhere in here, is she going to bring up something to the effect of children notice difference at a very young age, and you have to be able to contextualize for the children what differences are so that they do not fall into racist tropes or something like that, right? Because as we know, simply noticing difference is the same thing as having a ideology of racial supremacy. All right, so we have to swoop in and make sure they know what race really is. It's going to be something like that.
Many people, we know that elementary education, those early years are foundational years, and how important it is for children to be exposed to people of diverse backgrounds and to diversity in general. But also, many people believe that at this age, children just don't see color and they don't know what racism is. And
you know what? They don't. You know why they don't? Unless their family is teaching it to them, because racism is an ideology. It has to be taught. It has to be instilled in them to look at each other and see differences as value factors, right? My hair's blonde. My hair's brown. My eyes are green. My eyes are blue. And my skin is this and my skin is that. And that is as much value as any of it has towards assessing the person. Yeah, if you can teach children not to look at people and value them on the basis of their skin color. It is possible. So who's bringing up racism into the conversation with elementary school kids? If it's not the parents, I have an idea right now who it is.
there is all these misconceptions about it. We also know from the history of public education that elementary schools were really the very last frontier to desegregate. In many places in the South where people were against, bringing people together in one field, they had allowed high schools to desegregate. However, in these high school settings, student councils were separated between Black and white students, and they had two separate proms. But the main focus.
Wait. Is this the same Idaho State University that had black graduation a couple of years ago? I did a video on that on my channel because it was a big deal at the time. They had a black graduation. They had a racially segregated graduation ceremony. I'm not kidding. If I'm remembering correctly, it was Idaho State University. I believe it was, or at least in Idaho, or a college in Idaho. But either way, okay, black graduation. Okay, how about affinity groups? Have you heard about racial affinity groups in elementary schools? Because I did a video, if you can believe it, on a school in Minnesota from just, two years ago? That was doing racial affinity groups in their elementary school. Yeah. Elementary schools were some of the last to desegregate, but it's making a big comeback lately. And if I'm not mistaken, your own school engages in a certain level of segregation. But what do I know?
And where the civil rights movement had to go was in the elementary schools, because if you want to really build a racial superiority in some children, you cannot allow them to be in contact and be friends with people of different races from an early age. So
what has that got to do with today? I mean, even if I allow for the fact that elementary schools were some of the last schools to desegregate, that was what? Back in the 60s? Back in the 70s, maybe? All right, what does that have to do with elementary school students today? How is that applicable to anything? Okay.
There was a lot of resistance and a lot of organization to not allow elementary schools to come together and be desegregated.
Decades ago. So what?
And many scholars and researchers even believe today that since the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education court case, that many of our elementary schools continue to be, stubbornly segregated.
Oh, I agree. There are many that are being actively segregated with diversity initiatives and anti-racist teachings. But they're not being legally segregated, right? It's not under law. It's under policy that should probably be brought up on charges. But our nation's classroom is stubbornly segregated. Okay, what do you mean by that? Are you talking about their actual policies of segregation, which I agree there are? They're called affinity spaces, affinity groups, and so on. There are colleges that have spaces that are diversity spaces, or spaces that are for people of color, POC, BIPOC, etc. So yes, is that what you mean? Or are you talking about something else?
Even some data suggests that they're even more segregated now today than they were in the 80s.
Are you just talking about demographic split? Please don't tell me that you're looking at demographic split of school populations, and because there is a difference in the totals of races, therefore there's segregation, right? Because if like you look at an elementary school, it's like, oh, well, 60% of the students in this school are white and only 15% are black. Obviously, there's segregation going on. Please don't tell me it's a God of the gaps theory on that statement.
So this segregation persists despite mountain of evidence demonstrating that students who attend school in integrated settings harbor fewer prejudices and have less discriminatory attitudes.
No, wait. You're making a very, very specific accusation of classrooms in the nation that are stubbornly segregated. What do you mean they are stubborn? What evidence do you have of this segregation? What do you mean? If you bring up affinity groups or BIPOC spaces or any of that other stuff, hey, I'm on board. I'm right on board with you. But I don't know what you mean when you say that. You need to offer up something. Hopefully that'll happen in the rest of your presentation.
And research also shows that attending a diverse school helps to counter stereotypes and leading students to seek integrated settings later in life.
Research shows this. You can't just, okay, if you say so.
So I want to talk a little bit about the impact of racism on elementary school children. So when studies have been held, when people have been asked throughout your educational life, when was the hardest time for you when it came to racism, when children of color were asked that questions? And they often said that the elementary school experience was often the most difficult for them to process that racism. And one wonders why, right? So at this age, children really repeat everything that they hear at home. So if there is racist conversations in this charged climate currently around the dinner table, they will bring that to school and they will share that and they wouldn't think about it. In most cases, children at that age do not question their parents' opinion. And because due to the smaller school sizes of our elementary schools, children of color often feel that they do not have friends who really know what racism sounds like or looks like. So they don't really have any friends who can defend them during those incidents. And also children of color often don't know how to defend themselves at that age. And often racism comes as a shock to their system.
Okay, where is this your responsibility? I know this might sound a bit cold and callous, but I have to ask, where does this become your responsibility? Right? I mean, obviously, if you have a kid terrorizing another kid in the school over their race or something, yeah, you have to step in, you have to do something about that, etc. You know, call the parents, have a parent-teacher conference, and on and on and on. Where is this kid getting this, and on, and try to correct the child, and so on. Yeah, I get that. But outside of that, why is this your responsibility? Your responsibility is the academics. Okay. If a family is going to teach their kid to hate other people, etc., I don't know that there's much you can do about it except to try to rein in that kid's behavior at the school and punish them accordingly if they start disrupting things or start messing around with other kids or bullying them or whatever else. That's it. But regardless, there's a line here of where is your responsibility as a teacher and what befalls to the parents to deal with as far as the child's education, lifestyle, and so on. That's my question. Why do you need to concern yourself with this so much?
Now we need to look at some data and talk a little bit about the adultification of Black children. So in 2016, researchers at Yale determined that as early as preschool, so preschool is when children are 2 and 3 years old, educators tend to police Black children more severely than white students.
Why? Why is that? Because the educators are racist? I mean, that's the implication, right? There's no other factors that might be considered. Just the obviously must be racist. Okay.
And a nationally survey conducted by Ed Weekly Research Center just in June of this past year, 87% of teachers, principals, and district leaders agreed that Black students face higher rates of school discipline than their white peers due to discrimination.
Is it due to discrimination? I know this is going to be a very controversial thing, and I hesitate to wade into it, but I have to ask, is there a difference in culture between certain communities and how things work out? That's not me saying that there isn't racism, okay? But to defer immediately that everybody involved here is just looking at people and treating people on the basis of race. Is that it? It's the educator's fault? Okay.
And in part, this may be due to adultification of Black children, the well-established tendency for non-Black people to assume Black children are older than they actually are. Black boys in particular are seen as 4 and 5 years older than they are, according to a 2014 article published by the American Psychological Association.
Okay, so if I'm a teacher in an elementary school and I'm teaching children in 2nd grade who are what, like 6 or 7 or something, I think that my students who are Black males are 2 years older than that. I just lose all sense of reality. Is that how that works?
And in 2017, research from Georgetown Law Center confirmed that Black girls are also as older than they are, and they are less protected and are punished more severely in schools than white girls.
Okay, all that audio distortion is coming from the video. Okay, well, what does this have to do with elementary schools? What are you recommending have happen here? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that everything that you've said is absolutely true. I'll stipulate to all of it. What actions does this then result, or are you recommending to teachers to take in creating an equitable and or inclusive classroom using anti-racist ideology?
So let's look a little bit at children and racial identity. Again, going to this idea, children don't see color, right? So actually, at only 3 months old, children may look differently at people who look like or don't look like their primary caregivers.
Oh my gosh, do you mean to tell me that a baby who has been raised and who has seen nothing but a couple of people in their entire life to that point will look differently at people they don't recognize? You mean to tell me they can notice differences in people's appearance? Oh, well, obviously that makes them budding racists. Did I call it or did I call it?
So from a very, when they are still babies, at 3 months, they can see facial features, they can see color, and they can make that distinction, right?
That does not mean they are then racist. Noticing difference does not mean you're putting a value factor on them. God, I hate it every time they bring this up. Difference does not mean discrimination in the way that you mean it. Discriminating between two things. I can tell that that's my mommy and that this person is someone I don't recognize. That's all that says.
right? And at the age of 2.5, children can start developing and observing racial biases that they see in the world around them.
Well, what if the parents aren't teaching them anything other than assessing people on who they are and not what they are? When does this become your responsibility? What does a child's development at 2.5 years have to do with you, the elementary school teacher? Where are you going to intervene in this process prior to a child even ending up in your classroom?
So it already starts at that toddler age. And by age 4 and 5, they did these studies and they found that Black and Hispanic children show no preference towards their own group. They
they don't? Really? Huh.
don't think, oh, my group is better than other groups, right?
Oh, okay.
On the other hand, white kids remain strongly biased in favor of whiteness.
Oh, okay. So white people are naturally racist. Oh, is that what you're teaching your kids? Is that what you're teaching your elementary school kids? Oh, by the age of 4 and 5. So even before they get anywhere near your classroom, maybe on the edge of first grade. You've already determined this. Okay, so when the kids finally get to your elementary school classroom, you already know on the basis of what they look like how their mind works when it comes to race. Oh, okay. Great. Thanks for that.
And by kindergarten, children have already learned to associate some groups with higher status or more positive value than others.
Oh, well, then then the damage is already done, right? You can't do anything about it. It's got nothing to do with their upbringing. It's got nothing to do with the parents. It's just the way it is. All right. Well, let's just stipulate to that. Let's stipulate that you already know before they even enter the room how someone is going to evaluate others on the basis of race, on the basis of their race. Okay. What do you do? What is one to do as an elementary school teacher to fight back?
So when we look at children and identity and elementary school education, we know that in an elementary school setting, the virtues of kindness and friendship are very important.
Yes. Friendship, fair play, treating each other nicely, minding your manners, being polite, not hurting other kids. Yes, those are very important. That's true. That's very true.
Of course, who could argue with that?
I don't know. Who could argue with that? Are you going to argue with that?
Can you say there is anything wrong with kindness and friendship, right?
Right. Well, proceed.
We also know that children at this age are developing a sense of who they are. This includes, what is my race? What's my gender? What's my class? And
at kindergarten. At kindergarten, children are considering, what's my race? What's my gender? What's my class? Well, I mean, the gender part might have already kind of been figured out just because of biology. My class? Oh, yeah, I remember in kindergarten where I was taking time out of every day to assess my family's finances and where we stood in the grand scheme of the direct economy around me. I mean, I suppose depending on the circumstances, maybe someone's class has a bigger effect on their day-to-day than others. But at kindergarten, where you notice these things, really? And race. Good gravy. I must have grown up in just a golden age. I really must have. At least as an obviously inherently biased and terrible white person. Because when I was growing up, I had friends in kindergarten who were Black and Asian, and I didn't even understand that meant anything other than they looked different just because I looked different. That was all that it meant. My only concern was, do I get to play with them in this game, or are they taking up too much space in the sandbox? And I swear to God, those things never occurred to me as a kid. Never occurred to me. I wasn't raised that way. Now, I can't say what other kids were raised like around me or anything else, but it just didn't occur. It wasn't until I was like, I don't even know. I think the first time I ever heard someone say something racist, it was some kid, I think I was in like second or third grade. And there was a Black girl in my class, And I forget what the kid said, but he said something in a mean way and said something about her being black. And at the time, I didn't have any point of reference other than he was saying something mean to her. I mean, it was obvious that he was trying to insult her, he was trying to be mean to her. And that's all I got. I got the emotional aspect of it. I didn't understand the context of why he would say that particular thing, but that was irrelevant to me other than he was trying to make this person feel bad or to yell at her or whatever. And that is the first time I ever remember growing up that it ever even came up. But again, at that time, I didn't even know what I was supposed to do with that or what that was supposed to mean. But again, maybe I just grew up in a golden age. Maybe my parents are just great parents. I don't know. But okay, but you already know this. You already know that at kindergarten, this is already taking place in kids' minds. And most especially on the basis of the race of the kid, because you already know how they think based on, okay, all right, tell me more.
And all of those things, right?
Yeah.
However, these identities we know in our society have never been treated or represented equally in our country.
Never been treated or represented equally. How do you treat or represent class equally? How do you treat or represent gender equally or race equally? What do you mean by that?
So when we teach about acceptance and kindness without addressing inequity, we gloss over crucial differences in ways our students experience the world.
Whoa. How would you address the inequity of class amongst elementary school students? What are you going to do? Are you going to ask each kid to bring in their parents' bank book? So then you can assess who sits where in the grand scheme of the economy, and then what? How would you address the inequity of race in a classroom? What does that look like? In an elementary school setting, what would you do?
So one of the characters and heroes of our country, Dr. Martin Luther King,
Jr.
I feel as even racist people love to quote him on Facebook on Martin Luther King Day, right?
Even racist people like to quote him on Martin Luther King Day. Sure. Okay. I am sure that there is a racist person out there who in some way, shape, or form has quoted Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which we just had, actually. So, okay, and?
So it's easy for us to study civil rights movements and really cherry pick quotes from Dr. King, as many people do, that just focus on everybody getting along, right?
Right, because there are some things that transcend the individual that either espouse them or popularize them or came up with them. There are some principles that exist beyond the individual saying them. That's why. Because they are fundamental. You could remove Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from the equation whatsoever and just have the quote of a principle of interacting with and treating others fairly, and it would exist and persist regardless of the quality of the person who said it. Even if a racist person put out the quote about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. saying, content of character, not color of skin. Well, the racist person would be sort of shooting themselves in the foot, wouldn't they? Because the principle survives even if the person themselves dies. So what? Yeah?
But we can also show students at that young age when they're studying the I Have a Dream speech that yes, Dr. King did talk about that he can't wait for a day when his children are judged by the content of their character.
And not the color of their skin.
But also in the same speech, he refuses half measures towards equity, saying, no, we are not satisfied. And
oh, do you mean to tell me that not everything Martin Luther King Jr. said was necessarily agreeable in this day and age? Oh, okay. So does that make his ideal? Does that make his principle of content of character over color of skin invalid? What point are you trying to make?
We will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Yeah.
So focusing on the dream of equitable future without teaching the reality of an equitable present kind of ignores the radical anti-racism work that Dr. King and others, have been engaged in.
You say this with some kind of weird smile on your face. Nothing of what you said made any sense. Nothing of what you said. What principle are you attempting to instill in children? Fairness, equality, right? But you've already broken the idea laid down by Dr. King. You're already assessing students on the basis of their race. You just used research data that you say shows that white students are inherently racist. Do you want to be the change you want to see, or are you going to proceed under a belief that people are inherently flawed because of their melanin count, or inherently good because of their melanin count? Oh, but Dr. King said something different at a different time, at a different point in his speech. Oh, okay, well then I guess everything else is just nonsense. Am I missing something here?
So obviously we need to really promote anti-racism.
Obviously, promote some more anti-racism with your racist assessment of elementary school children.
Curriculum in our schools, especially in the elementary setting. And we know that historically our educational system has been founded on many racist practices.
Is it today? Well, you're sure working hard at making it so, aren't you?
Including silencing those from disenfranchised communities.
Is that common practice today?
And to build a just curriculum also needs to include teaching history in a responsible way.
Oh, a responsible way. Oh, what does that mean?
Which still is not being done.
How do you mean? How do you mean history is not being taught in a responsible way? What are you talking about? What history are you looking to teach elementary school students that is more correct history, more responsible history than previously?
And it also needs to ensure that the diversity of cultures in our country are represented and honored in our studies.
How? Give me an example. What are you talking about? You're the expert. What are you recommending be done?
But we know that it's not enough to simply have representation. Students must feel that their identities are validated and their school is a place that completely accepts them.
Give me an example of what that looks like. I don't know how to assess what you're saying unless you tell me in the school I work in or in this school that I advised or something. Students must feel that their identities are validated. Okay, well, you're already partitioning students into 3 categories so far: race, gender, and class. And you're calling those identities, as though any of those elements say anything about an individual, their character, their behavior, how they treat themselves or others. It doesn't say anything about that. But you've decided to assign some value to those 3 elements to a student. Okay, well, how are you validating a student's class? How would you do that? What would that look like in the classroom, on the ground, teacher to student? What does that look like? How do you validate their race? Like their race was invalid to begin with or something? Okay, well, how would you do that? How would you validate their gender? I mean, I'm dying to know what this actually looks like between an adult teacher and an elementary school child in the course of a school day.
And we need to really realize often we have a charity approach about teaching diversity or anti-racism education. And we need to realize that it's not just for students of color to see themselves in the literature or the history that they study, that students from all backgrounds need to hear those perspectives as well.
What perspectives? What are you talking about? Oh my gosh. I don't know why I bother asking these rhetorical questions, just to sort of point out what's not being said by people who sit in a position of authority, especially over elementary school students. You know, when they're young enough to be indoctrinated into some real crazy nonsense. I don't know why I get so worked up over that. I don't know. Just something about it just strikes me as worrisome.
And that we need to teach students with privilege not to have a savior attitude towards historically disfranchised communities.
Oh, no. We don't want to teach students with privilege to be saviors. That's my job as the teacher, to be the savior. My job is to point out that students come into the classroom already being racist, while others are totally not racist and couldn't possibly be racist, and to also let them know the correct and responsible history and how that applies to them. And also, hey kids, I know that your privilege makes you inherently inclined to be a savior. And I know you have privilege because of what you look like. No, it's my job to be the savior of the people who can't help themselves, because I have to point out when they're being victimized by society and their classmates because of what their classmates look like or what class economic station they come from. Are you listening to yourself, lady? Good gravy.
But rather to listen and to value and stand in friendship and kinship with them as we all work together towards a more just environment.
Yeah, a more just environment where we assess each other on the basis of our appearance, our class, and our gender. Rather than just treating people equally, rather than just looking at race as relevant as someone's hair color or eye color, no, we have to be very conscious of race. We have to point out race. We have to make sure the students understand what racism is, guys. We can't just let that entire concept be left into the dustbin of history. No. We have to make sure they know where the separations lie, that there's a difference student to student based on these elements, these identities, as I've called them. You have to silo all of our children and categorize them and evaluate them and let them know to do the same to themselves and each other. Yeah, great job. Real great job.
I'm sure you have all studied, for everyone who is engaged in anti-racist work, the Bible of anti-racism education currently is Dr. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Oh, you have no idea. Yes, and indeed, you are correct to categorize it as a Bible, because anti-racism is about confession and inherent sin. Oh yeah, no, you got it right there.
And one of my favorite quotes out of the book is that there is no neutrality in the racism struggle. You're either on the right side of the history or the wrong side of history.
You're either with us or you're against us. You're either a racist or you're an anti-racist. That doesn't mean you're not racist still. It just means that you're aware of your own racism.
There's no neutrality in any place in this. And the claim of not racist neutrality is a mask for racism.
Yeah, you see, guys, if I make a statement, that I don't value people on the basis of skin color, I'm being racist. That is anti-racism belief. That is anti-racism theology. Anything that does not admit to my inherent wretchedness as a dirty, terrible, full-on racist means I'm a racist. There is no winning here. Racism is the universal constant. Yeah, ask if you ever come across someone who says they are an anti-racist, all right, ask them to tell you, what are your racist beliefs? Just ask them, what are your racist beliefs? What racist beliefs do you have to struggle against every day? Because they cannot tell you that they don't. Because see rule number one. Rule number one, you cannot be not racist. Rule number two, right? So I would love to find somebody who is a declared anti-racist, and I want to ask them. What racist thoughts and beliefs do you struggle with against every day? Detail them for me. I'd like a list.
An anti-racist is someone who's supporting an anti-racist policy by their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea.
But they can't say they're not racist, right? They can't say they're not racist. Oh man, it's anti-racism is amazing. It is an amazing circle of logic.
So continuing to look at this, they did just this past year, they did a study and they asked teachers if they have had training and resources they needed to teach an anti-racist curriculum. And only 11% of the teachers said that they did.
Oh my gosh. Only 11%? Well, that actually makes me, I mean, the real percent should be 0. So the fact that, over 10% of teachers said that they had is worrying enough, but I can only hope it goes down from here.
So even as educators see the need to equalize and improve the educational experience for students of color, they might not have the tools or the support they need to address curriculum and practices at their school.
Oh, equalize for... Are you even reading your own text? Equalize on the basis of race. Yeah, so all these schools are obviously racist because they don't teach anti-racism. Is that it? Of course that's it. Of course that's the conclusion. If you don't think the way we think, well, then you are blasphemers and heathens.
So talking about teacher education programs that produce teachers that go into the world and take on those elementary schools and middle and high schools, our programs need to look at ourselves in a very honest way.
Yes.
And ask ourselves if our students are really ready to create truly equitable classrooms that embrace the history and culture of communities.
Why does my classroom have to embrace the history and culture of any community? Why can't I just teach the subjects that I'm there to teach? Why can't I just do that? How about we just do that? How about we not elevate or denigrate anybody's culture, skin color, assumed history, or anything else? How about we just teach kids how to write and read and spell? Teach them how to do math. Teach them basic world history in elementary school. Elementary school? How about that? How about we remove any considerations of students on the basis of what they look like? How about that? How about we treat them as people and not as colors? Treat them as individuals, not as identities. I know, a pie in the sky, utopian ideal. What am I saying? I'm out of my freaking mind, right? Boy, oh boy.
And these programs need to really make an effort to meet with Black, Indigenous, and other educators of color and listen to their experience as both students and teachers.
All right, because obviously no one else can have an opinion or a perspective on subjects that matter. Obviously, we have to value skin color and ethnicity. Got it.
For that, faculty should create, new courses and syllabi representing the best of an anti-racist teacher preparation program.
Yeah, an anti-racist program focusing specifically on particular skin colors and ethnicities. Okay, got it. Yeah, Asian teachers, let's just exclude them, right? I mean, they're not Black, they're not Indigenous, so they don't matter, right? Okay, Hispanic teachers? No, they don't matter either. Let's set them aside. Okay. Yeah. Now let's talk about anti-racism in the school. Oh, okay. Okay.
So what do anti-racist teachers do differently?
They're racists.
They studied and they're committed on deepening their critical consciousness by learning how to identify racism. It's always amazing how people can be in the same room and racist comments are made and it just goes over people's head. They
Yeah, it's almost like you've turned yourself into a witchfinder general, and that you know that witchcraft is there. You just have to find it.
Can't even hear it. Okay,
Yeah.
so can you even hear? Can our children hear when they hear racism?
They're not your children. That, I tell you what, statements like that, it always hits a nerve, especially these days. They are, at best, your students. That is the relationship between you and them. You are not their parent. You are not their guru. You are, at best, their elementary school teacher. And I'm not even a parent. This is the thing. I don't even have any kids. But when I hear somebody else talking in the collective possessive way about somebody else's kids, I get a little, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just, if you're a parent out there with a kid and you hear things like this and it doesn't bother you, okay. But in this context specifically, it really gets my hackles up, let's say.
Identify racism, how racism is carried out and built in systems and structures, how people hold, sustain, and maintain racism. And
you know how you hold and maintain racism, leaning into and using as your personal doctrine a study that says white kids are inherently racist and Hispanic and black kids aren't. That's how. What systems? Oh, I don't know. How about singling out teachers in your school on the basis of their race or ethnicity while ignoring others and valuing their opinions and perspectives more so than anybody else's as a matter of policy? Maybe something like that. I don't know.
And how people of color can often internalize racism. And educators need to recognize that even the best teachers are not immune from bias, and that the goal of equity requires for all of us to look within.
Yes, and you already know what people think about and how they internalize things. People of color can internalize. They don't even know it, right? They're not even aware of it. I know it. Right? Because I'm an anti-racist. I can see that they're doing it. If I see racism taking place, I know that someone who looks a particular way is internalizing it. I know how they think. Those people.
Instead of thinking, somebody give me a gold medal because I'm too great to hate, right? That we are above that. This education needs to be ongoing.
Are you sure you're above that? Because it sure feels like you're looking for a gold medal for being so anti-racist and so enlightened.
Anti-racist teachers should be able to help children recognize when they see and hear racism, and they need to know what to do about it.
Help children recognize when they see and hear racism. Who's they? The teacher or the student? So if the teacher decides that something that was said or something that was seen within the child's eye shot or earshot is racist, then the teacher has to grab that kid by the shoulders and let them know that was racist. Is that how that works?
Children of color need to know that their teachers will speak up, facilitate, and engage with them when they have experienced racism.
Oh, okay. I know I'm not going to get it, but I would love to see an example of how this works in the classroom, even if it was just like a dramatized role play session or something. What do you think that looks like? What is the teacher supposed to do?
And anti-racist educators understand that love and silence are deeply contradictory. Okay.
What? Love and silence are deeply contradictory.
Okay, so the experience of many students of color has been that when they have experienced racism, that often their teachers in that moment, they were just speechless. They didn't know what to say in that moment.
What? I know. It's pointless to say, but my immediate reflex is, what are you talking about? Give me an example. I can believe, because I went to school, that kids can be mean and racist. I've seen it. Okay. Right? What is a teacher supposed to do? What is within their mandate as a teacher to do in these circumstances? Or what are you recommending be done? If a student says something racist to another student, okay, I would love to just ask this lady, okay, just hypothetically speaking, student A says something racist to student B. Teacher overhears this. What does the teacher do? What is their response to the student that said the thing? What is their response to the student who it was the target of the thing? What happens then? Right? What do you recommend be done?
And when doing work with racial trauma, children have often told clinical psychologists that the most hurtful moment isn't an actual threat, but when they realized the adults who were supposed to protect them had stayed silent.
How is a teacher, or hell, I mean, just a person? Okay. Kid A says something mean and or racist or whatever to kid B. It's been said, it's been done. What protection are you talking about? Right? Because I know this is very old school, all right? But when I was made fun of when I was a kid, because I had glasses, because I was shorter than some of the other kids at the time, because I was quieter and more reserved and all these other things, when I was made to feel like absolute garbage by other kids, you know what I had to do? I had to just grow up. I had to just sticks and stones it. Otherwise, I wouldn't get anywhere. Right? If someone's being stupid, if someone's being mean to me, I have to learn to manage that by saying that doesn't matter, or that person's a jerk, or their words don't mean anything. Right? That was the lessons I was taught as a kid. So is that your job as the teacher? Is that what you're recommending? I have a feeling that's not what you're recommending. I have a feeling it sounds like you're asking these kids, or you're going to be making these kids simmer and marinate in this stuff, rather than teaching them that people's words don't matter. It's what you do. It's who you are. Your skin color is irrelevant. Wouldn't that be the way to go? I have a feeling that's not the way you would take it.
So anti-racist teachers, they continue to educate themselves on these issues. They really listen to families of color, to educators and students of color. They connect, they find and build groups for accountability within their institutions.
Why are you focusing on of color? How is divvying people up on the basis of their skin color, regardless of the circumstances, anti-racist? They inherently struggle because of their skin color. People immediately dismiss them because of their skin color. This is how you're proceeding through the world. This is how you assess other people. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. But if you're making assumptions about someone's quality of life, quality of thinking, on the basis of what they look like, particularly skin color, you might just be a racist. But then, of course, anti-racism doesn't say you're not racist. So,
but they also know that if you're engaged in anti-racism work, that you're going to get attacked, that you're going to receive backlash every time you open your mouth to talk about this issue.
No, backlash and attack? No, criticism and mockery. And here's the thing. You keep doing what you want to do, right? And I'll keep reacting and criticizing what I see as problematic. There you go. And yes, you're going to receive pushback from rational people who can listen to what you're saying and recommending be done with children and finding it a little regressive. You're correct. So what do you do? What do you do then when you face this critical thinking?
There's going to be the angry emails and phone calls. So there needs to be a support system in place within every department where people can check on each other.
An echo chamber where anybody who happens to point out any inconsistencies or hypocrisies in your teachings you need to like run away and go cuddle with someone because someone said something mean to you. It couldn't possibly be that they have a point, right? And if you receive a consistent amount of backlash, quote unquote, or criticism, it couldn't be that maybe, just maybe, the possibility exists that there's something wrong with your way of seeing the world, or something regressive, or at least not productive. No. You have to go find support. You have to go back to that safe space where you don't have to question whether or not maybe you've made a wrong choice.
To make sure that they are okay while they are addressing some of these issues.
Addressing some of these issues. How would you address an issue of someone saying, I think what you're teaching my child is poisonous? I think you're galvanizing a sense of racism, not curing it. How would you address that issue?
And of course, using your power, whatever that power might be, to take action. And looking at, are people being left out? Does your administrator treat people unfairly? And all of those things.
Yeah, always be looking for racism. If you're an anti-racist, you are a witch finder general. Yes, witchcraft is there no matter what. And
this is one of my favorite images because it really allows all of us to look and ask ourselves, where are we in this in this path? While we are trying to become anti-racist, are we in the fear zone where we even deny racism is a problem or avoid hard questions? Are we in the learning zone where we recognize racism is a present and current problem, and we understand our own privilege in ignoring racism, and we continue to educate ourselves on race and structural racism? And then, of course, there is the growth zone. Can I sit with my discomfort? Conversations on race and racism, no matter what age group, what setting, are always uncomfortable. Am I willing to still have them and be uncomfortable so I can grow out of that?
Yeah, because, the most pleasant place to be is a place of discomfort. Boy, I know I'm learning when I'm uncomfortable. Boy, oh boy. When I'm being assessed by someone who has absolutely no knowledge of me, but knows at least as much of my gender and my race, and they already know how to value me. They already know what I think. They already know what I feel. They already know what I have to say about the world. Yeah, no, that is a discomfort. I just love marinating in being accused and assumed to be things that I'm not because of what I look like. That's the real lesson here. That's the fear zone, the learning zone, the growth zone. Gosh, if I just changed a few words around on this chart, I'm pretty sure I could detail the process of indoctrination into a cult.
And so it's always good to go back to this image and kind of ask ourselves, all right, where am I and what kind of work do I need to do in this process?
The work.
Thank you so much. Thank all of you for such thoughtful and rich conversations.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Khalil, have you been monitoring the chat function here?
Oh, boy, we get into question time? Let's get into question time.
And do you have any questions to start us off with?
Yes, I already forwarded one question to Samantha, and I'm sure she agreed to answer that question.
Oh, my God. You're going to ask Dr. Sam a question? Can the answer be anything other than lengthy?
Dr. Samantha?
Yes, so the question is about how to accommodate students that are maybe non-traditional or not like used to all of the new online things that we all have to do.
Okay, so like a student that's completely unplugged from technology? Like, what do you mean?
That we all have to do now. And that is something that I think about every day now. I haven't taught much before COVID online, and so lately a lot of my thoughts have gone to how do I translate all of the things that I try to do online. And I think one of the
Well, my first concern would be accessibility. Like, not every kid is necessarily geared up to have the equipment to get online. I'm sure that was addressed in other places over the course of the pandemic, and I'm sure I read something on it. But I was always curious, like, not every household has a high-speed internet connection, and not every household has a laptop. I assume some schools were providing students with tablets or laptops or something to try to make sure that they had the accessibility to classes and things during the lockdowns and all. So accessibility would be my first real concern about that. But what are you talking about?
One of the things that I do with students who do struggle with the technology is I try to walk them through as much as I can, or point them into the right direction of someone who is way better at it than me. And also let them know that, it's not my ideal to be online necessarily either. And so I'm learning. And so let's walk through some of these things together. I also, for online classes, try to have as much interaction as you can possibly have in an online class. And I use Discord. And so,
hey, I use Discord too. Yay.
On Discord, the students communicate a lot with each other, all day, every day, with each other and with me and with a TA. And so they ask each other questions and they share things that they find, or they can enter into chats themselves or with me. And so once I walk through, and you can use this on your phone and stuff. And so a lot of times I use Discord on my phone. And so I'll walk a student through how to use Discord. And once they get it, they also have all of their online classmates that they use as resources as well. And so that's helped me a lot in timing, because sometimes they'll ask me a question, but another student gets to it before I have to.
I'm not sure. I mean, I've always been a little wary over the last several years of encouraging kids to be more dependent on social media and chat and stuff, but it's essentially endemic to society now, so it's probably unavoidable. But okay, sure. On this point, not much I can say. I was concerned about accessibility for online students during that particular period of time and onward. So if that's a tool that works, great. Although, like so many other chat programs and things in Discord and elsewise, there be dragons. So I only hope that the parents are monitoring what other things their kids might or might not be subscribing to in the course of using Discord.
And so, but for me, it's a work in progress. That I'm still trying to find ways to make the online situation work for the different types of students, and certainly for blind and low vision students, that's a very different game.
Okay. Let someone else talk now. You've answered your question.
And something that I'm still trying to consider, and I hope that other people have suggestions on this, but I try to just make everybody know that I'm very available, and so are your classmates. They're still there.
All right.
So hopefully that sort of answers that question.
Thank you so much. And there's one more question from Aaron Medicine. Like in the beginning, Dr. Samantha, you talk about how important it is to bring the students in the classroom and make them feel welcome and included and all of those things. But what about international students, for example, or some of the students who are afraid to speak in the classroom because of the different environment? Could be language barrier, could be different culture. Any suggestion, like how to work with those students to speak up in the classroom?
So that also, I think probably everybody struggles with that continuously.
It's a common thing across my entire scholastic life. There was the new kid in class, the new kid in town, that kind of thing. That has nothing to do with the current stripe of DEI or otherwise initiatives. So we're back to boilerplate classroom 101 advice, which is perfectly fine, but it's got nothing to do with equity as defined currently, or inclusion, or anti-racism, or any of this stuff. So by all means, and thank you, Derek LaRue, once again. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much for your continued support. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you're having a good day. You never say anything in your chat, so I'm not quite sure what my reflex is to respond to a question or something, and all I can say is just thank you. So thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. Yeah. So where are we again? Oh yeah. How do you get a shy kid to participate, or a kid that is from a different country or is still learning the language? Well, first off, hopefully that kid is enrolled in an English as a second language class or something, but okay.
Another way I try to approach it at first is I have them talk about that problem. Because as myself, I was a student that did not like to talk either. And so I let them know that, and that I totally understand, and I know some of the reasons why, and sometimes putting them into smaller groups helps them, because then they don't have to talk in front of everybody or in front of the instructor, that they're talking to their peers. And so I try to have opportunities like that, or I use other ways for them to get into a discussion. Like I've been using a software called Perusal, and you can make comments on the readings and they can talk to each other in sort of a chat type of way. And so that way they're talking still in class in a different way. I can see they're talking, and they can engage in times when they don't necessarily feel like they can speak up, or they need extra time, because I certainly have students that need more time than just talking real time in class.
Here's an idea, and this is something that many of my teachers did. If a couple of new students came into class, or there was a transition over the course of the summer or something, come back and new kids are there, you ask something general to the whole class. Even if you're familiar with a whole bunch of students and not so much familiar with a couple of others, you make it a question that covers everyone so that no one feels singled out. Everybody gets to say, what's one thing you did over the summer? And you get everybody engaged, right? And you got a seating chart, and you get everybody's names down. You introduce everybody. Yes, there are plenty of ways you can try to get new kids or shy kids included into things for the sake of getting them involved in the lesson plan and so on. Yes, it's very good. And for the online stuff, again, chat rooms and getting people to communicate. All right, I agree. How is any of that something new? When you guys talk about create strategies for creating inclusive classrooms, that goes far beyond just the basics of establishing a social dynamic amongst your students. That's fine. I hope somebody asks a question more on point.
And so I find that something like Perusal has worked for me for that so far. Just giving them another way of having extra time to think about what they want to say.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple of more minutes. Well, we don't have a couple of more minutes, but we can take at least 2 more questions.
Yeah, that was it. You had Dr. Sam got 2 questions and nobody else posted any. Oh man, I wish I was in on this call. Oh golly, I wish I was in on this call somehow. It's just going to be silence for the next 10 minutes.
Hello, it's Maurice.
Okay.
Hi, Maurice.
Hey, it's more of a comment than anything. I just want to actually thank you for this presentation for all 3 panelists. Samantha was awesome. Her presentation was really good, and I can see how it can be used in other genres. Hey, Samantha, how you doing? And Sean, her, I know she's new to the campus, but I think that she'll be a great resource for people.
What is he doing with his hand? Is he casting a spell?
Who are, seeking that PhD and so forth. And Mona, she was awesome.
Oh yeah, Mona was my favorite. Mona was my favorite for keeping it relatively brief and concise, but also going into subject matter that just fascinates me. Training elementary school kids to be anti-racists. Oh man.
I really liked her. I can really relate to, of course, being a Black male growing up in Los Angeles, how, teachers, how they treated us. And I really liked her research. So throwing it out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
I have a question I want to throw out to really any one of you. I think you would all give potentially great answers to this.
Oh boy.
There's been, I work in an English department, and in the field of writing studies, there have been over the last 10 to 20 years, some arguments in favor of using a type of contract grading as a way of fighting racism, valuing labor rather than grading based on quality of work.
Wait, what?
And it's somewhat controversial.
Just on the basis of what you've said, it sounds controversial because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Grading on the basis of labor and not quality. What is that? You'd have to explain that because I don't understand. And how is that supposed to fight racism?
And I was interested in hearing any thoughts any of you have about issues relating to to the ways in which we could potentially work to eradicate racism through the way we grade and assess student work.
Okay. Yeah, I guess now I am curious to know the answer to that question too, because it sounds bizarre in the absence of any other context. But okay, how would you eliminate racism through how you grade? Rather than holding students to a standard that has nothing to do with what they look like, but how they demonstrate a grasp of the subject matter, which is what it should be. How would you do it differently? Okay, here's a tip for anybody who either is a moderator or is an overseer of a discussion or something. When you ask a question to everyone, then pick one of the people to speak. Just laying it out there and waiting for somebody to take the first step. No, just say, let's start with you, Mona. This awkward silence can be easily avoided.
So
yeah.
I've just found that it, in general, for all students, letting them have an expression from themselves versus giving them something more structured with points or something is better for them. It actually makes my relationship with them better and more open.
An expression for themselves rather than, what are you talking about?
As well. And so I've had like rubrics and stuff where I use points and stuff too. And then at the end, there's always something that's missing from a rubric that I found and that I can't quite figure out how to correct for that.
What are you talking
and so
about?
That's part of the problem that I have with using points. And I've started learning a bit about the entire ungrading system, which is not ready to go into, but I want to know more about it and how it works. Because of the fact that I really just feel like there's other means of expression. But
what are you talking? Express themselves without using points. How do you assess someone's competency in a subject? I mean, you eventually have to quantify that in some way, shape, or form in order to follow and track their progress, in order to set goals. What are you guys talking about?
That's just my point of view.
That wasn't okay. Your point of view is about as clear as mud right now. What did you? What?
I'm not sure. This is Ann Hackard. I'm the director of assessment from the College of Business, and we have.
Oh well, hi! Just busting in out of nowhere without invitation.
An accreditor who tells us that diversity and inclusion matters.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, I guess if you say it matters, it must matter. All right.
However, what Margaret has pointed out is the talk and the reality can be very different. And so this is not something that I've seen in a lot of colleges of business as I've conducted research, but it's a really good idea to raise because, as Margaret pointed out, there can be some things inherent in how we're doing this that can mean that a side effect is to be not diverse and not have inclusion.
Okay, lady, now that you're speaking for the other lady, seemingly, and came out of nowhere, and you're the authority, all right, well, such as what happens in your business college where you're automatically or unintentionally racist in your grading system?
So I would say we're not there yet in college as a business, but I think it's a good point.
What the what the hell are you talking about, lady? What you were just sitting here waiting for an opportunity to butt in on a conversation you weren't even a part of, but you just wanted to chime in and say, oh yeah, no, Margaret pointed out this thing and it's a thing we have to pay attention to, and that's a thing that I think is worth talking about. Well, thank you so much for your contribution to the conversation.
Nishan or Mona, did you either of you have any thoughts on this question? And it's okay if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, anti-racist lady. Hey, Mona, you're the anti-racist. You must know something about the inherent racism of grades, right?
I don't know about you, Mona.
Yeah, Mona's got nothing. Really, Mona? You got nothing? You're the anti-racism expert. What, you're not going to say something about the racist or inequitable method of grading? I've done at least 1 or 2 videos on that in the past with other educators. Okay.
I just have one comment.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Go ahead, business lady.
To make, and that is institutionally, we're going through accreditation with the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities. Okay. And I'm going to share in the chat a link with you because guess what?
What?
This matters. And it matters not just, as I indicated, in an accredited college of business program, but it also matters institutionally.
Why? Why does it matter? Tell us.
So I just want to commend our presenters today for bringing up these fabulous ideas that the Academy really needs to hear. And I just got so many great ideas. Yeah. But please, let's all leave here in our action item. Let's think about how we can incorporate some of these ideas in our own classes and encourage our colleagues to do that too.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. You know, I just saw this great webinar from the Idaho State University where they told me that I'm supposed to look at people and know what they think on the basis of their race. It was great. I can't wait to incorporate these ideas into my classroom because this matters, especially for accreditation.
Thanks, Ann. I also wanted to mention we got a comment from Elizabeth Kirkham, who said she's had some success with ungrading, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share a little bit about what you've learned.
Ungrading. Okay, this is news to me. I don't know that I've heard this term before, so maybe I've heard of it if they explain it. Ungrading.
Oh, certainly. So with what I've been doing with my upper division classes is setting up a system in which the low stakes assignments, and they have 1 or 2 of those a week, are scored on a satisfactory, unsatisfactory scale. And then at the midterm and at the final, they have a self-reflection and they argue for their grade. And at that point, they have to use their work in the class to demonstrate their learning and growth.
So you mean to tell me that you grade small stakes assignments on either a pass-fail basis, and then at the end of the term, the student has to demonstrate through their work their grasp of the subject matter such that they can argue for what grade they should receive? And you're going to assess that on the basis of what?
So they can't just say, I earned an A because I think I earned an A.
Oh, you mean they actually have to show through demonstrative effort, work, and test results that they earned an A, and you will assess them on the basis of the totality of their effort. Do you mean to tell me that your ungrading system involves grading their work? Okay.
They actually have to point to specific examples in their discussions, in the content that they have produced, and argue and create a case for.
Well, what if, who isn't going to create a case that I deserve an A? Right? Who in their right mind wouldn't at least aim for the moon and hope to hit the mountains? Okay, and then what do you have to do? You, the teacher, have to go back and guess what? Assess the quality of their work leading up to the end of the class and then assign them a grade.
For that grade. And so far, I haven't had anyone who has argued for a grade that they didn't actually earn.
Oh, really? Really? Okay, so why do you need them to argue for it in the first place if you're still going to assess whether or not they earned it? What's the point? Usually when I hear about like a student arguing with a teacher for a grade or something, they're doing something like to challenge the class. I always heard that. I never saw it done, but I always heard you could challenge the class and say, just give me a omnibus test for this class that I will take to demonstrate I have all the knowledge and skill of necessary to have passed this class if I'd spent the entire term taking it. Right? But even then, you're showing that you actually possess the knowledge and the ability to equate to the class's benefit. But okay, so no student has ever argued for a grade they didn't earn. Really? You've never, ever had to downgrade a student's plea versus their demonstrable work. Wow, that's awfully lucky.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of our session today?
Please, let's get this over with.
I just want to say that I really like what Ann said, that we have to have an action item leaving this meeting today.
Okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. Not only because I have to go to the bathroom, but because at this point, I'm just going to hear a bunch of glad handing and people, giving each other congratulations over how awesome they are and explaining some things and not explaining most things. I think we've got everything we're going to get out of this, and I've hit my hour and a half limit, as it were. So I'm going to go to the chat real quick for you guys and see what you have to say. Seftus Wolf, I earned an A because I spent so much time trying to understand what you meant as you use buzzwords and say nothing. Yeah, everybody who sat through these things with me, especially their Sunday and today, you all get an A. You all get an A for attention because or arduousness, depending on how you look at it. I appreciate that. Peter, I would have argued for a grade I didn't earn. Exactly. Aim for the moon and hope you hit the mountains, right? That's exactly what you do. Why wouldn't you do that? I deserve an A. Well, what's the worst that happens? They fail you? I mean, maybe through your charm and charisma and argumentative skills, you might be able to convince them to at least give you a C, right? It doesn't hurt to try. That sounds like the most ridiculous system. Argue for the grade you want. What grade did I earn? If you're gonna be assessing them what they earned anyway. Oh, but I never had a student argue for a grade they didn't earn. Well, that's amazing. You must have some very, very honest students, or you have no spine. I'm not quite sure which one I should believe in, but given the presentation and the material at hand, I'm inclined to think the latter. But that might just be me. Deco. If you write well enough, you can bullshit yourself into a passing grade. Exactly. Like I say, moon, mountains. I can't count how many BS papers I wrote making myself sound all smart about something that got me a decent grade, and I didn't put that much effort into it, but I said what I thought the teacher wanted to hear. Yeah, nothing there. I don't talk that. Blue-eyed scream. I'm home from work and fixing food. Not too shabby. How was your day, Derek LaRue? Oh. Derek LaRue, grade is based on skin color. Well, especially from Mona, our anti-racist apostle. Certainly, she knows how to grade as to not alienate or marginalize anybody. I'm sure, based on what she had to say about how she knows people work. Let's see. Tyrannus. So I don't have to be a good student. I just got to be a good salesman and bullshit. Hey, you know, there is some merit to that lesson in life, you know? However, I would hope it wouldn't be encouraged and, in fact, baked into the process of purported academic achievement. That's the one thing. There is some value to being a good bullshitter and salesman, depending on the circumstances. The fact that educators are effectively setting up or encouraging to be set up a system of grading that almost completely necessitates and encourages that in order to advance in studies and academia. Ugh, good gravy. You listen to them. Just listen to them. Shadowclaw, Scribble went from racism to love and tolerance and back to racism in 60 years. It does feel like it's one big bell curve, doesn't it? Really feels like it. The virtues of assessing students on their skin color. Just take that statement for a second and just consider it. The virtues of assessing students on their skin color. That was the meat of our anti-racist advocates' speech there. That there's value to that. That there's something to be known about a person. How to assess them, even when they're a child. But that's all cool, guys. Right? That's all cool. Because if some guy in the 50s was talking to a school board and telling them, well, we know that children of a particular color think this way before they're even in school. We know it's just naturally born into them because of what they are. Wow, that's really forward thinking. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah. Anyway, everybody, I'm going to call it here because I got to go to the bathroom. 1 and 2, it's lunchtime and I'm hungry. And so I think I have done as much justice as I can to this presentation from Idaho State University and how to strategize for inclusive classrooms. So with that, I'll wrap it up here. Programming note, Thursday, just 2 days from now, I got to remind myself because I had Monday off and my brain schedule is skewed a bit. Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern will be another edition of TED Excellence. I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk for enlightenment and intuition. I call it intuition, I guess. I don't know. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. Everybody who participated in this inclusive endeavor, all of us together, thank you so much. Hope you have a good rest of your Tuesday. That's what day it is. Hope you have a good rest of your week. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.